Hare Krishna. Please and humble obeisances. All praise to Srila Prabhupada. We'll be just discussing the last part of chapter 6. I think the verses are straightforward and Prabhupada's purports are very direct, but just to point out bring out to the attention few key points in the last section of Narad Muni. I'll just record a few points here. So let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanati Mirandhasya Jnananjan Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we have been discussing the life of Sri Narad Muni, and we read the story of how Narad Muni he actually had this darshan of the Lord in the core of his heart, and how he actually experienced the symptoms of bhav when he actually saw that form of the Lord, and then the vision, that form of the Lord disappeared, and then Narad Muni again tried to do the same kind of meditation. Again, he tried to follow the same steps, but he could not see the Lord again, right? And then we hear that how Narad Muni was perturbed on losing the form, and he was thinking like, "Oh, I saw that form. Why can I not see it again?" And that hankering, we talked about the importance of the hankering, how it is an impetus for us to progress in our spiritual journey. That hankering for devotional mellows, the hankering for devotional service, you know. So Narad Muni was perturbed that, oh, why can I not see that form again, right? So he repeatedly tried to focus, but still he did not see the form. And then Lord, who is always merciful to his devotees, he actually spoke to Narad Muni, and then Narad Muni heard this voice of the Lord. So there was no vision now, but the Lord actually spoke, and then he actually said, I gave you darshan once, but that one darshan was, and then now I have, taken away that darshan because I gave you that one darshan just to increase your desire, your hankering for me. And the more you hanker for Krishna, the more you'll be free from material desire. So that one darshan, and we discussed this point that how the Krishna is like the perfect teacher, and he knows perfectly what we need for us to actually attain success in our spiritual journey and go back home, back to God, right? So the Lord knew perfectly well that how to Narad Muni that one darshan, will be sufficient. And then after he loses a darshan, Narad Muni would actually take up the process and attain perfection in that same lifetime, right? And uh, yeah, and then and then the Lord actually he makes a point that by my mercy you will actually remember, you will have my smriti, my remembrance, even during creation and annihilation of this world, and even time factor will not interrupt your devotional service. And then Lord stopped speaking, and then we read like how Narad Muni he actually after this entire episode he what did he do? Namanya anantasya hat namanya anantasya hata tripaha pathan, right? So basically in text 26, which Prabhupada says is the nutshell verse describing the life of a sincere devotee. So we discussed 26 where he actually we see what Narad Muni did, right? So he actually did namani, he actually chanted the name, the fame, the pastimes of the Lord. Anantasya, right? Anantasya referring to the Lord himself. He chanted the holy name and fame of the Lord. And hit trapaha. Hit trapaha means being freed from all formalities of this material world. Okay. And actually, every word of that verse is very important. Badrani means this chanting is all benedictory, all auspicious. Right? So chanting and remembering of the pastimes of the Lord is benedictory. And in doing so, while chanting the glories of the Lord, then he actually traveled all over the earth, and is described he was fully satisfied, he was humble and unenvious, right? Humble without being proud, vimadaha, right? And then vimatsaraha without being envious, right? So these are the qualities. So how we Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Trinadapi sunichena, when we are actually in that mood of humility, when there is no question of envy, right? Amanina Madhana, Kirtaniya Sadhari. Then you can actually chant the glories of the Lord constantly. So because Narad Muni was in that mood of, even that what the Lord spoke to Narad Muni actually made Narad Muni more humble from the core of his heart, and he was non-envious, and he was actually chanting. And Purport Prabhupada makes the point that for devotees, they are conducted by only one desire, one single desire, right? We need that one pointed. Vyavasatmik Kampati, Ekehe Kurunandana. What is that? That one desire to go back home, back to God, right? So only business is to chant and remember the holy name of the Lord. Um, okay, and because this is the highest aim of life, like Prabhupada makes the point that the later purpose of it comes that when one is so focused on that highest goal, then if there are some minor disturbances, then Prabhupada, when there's a minor disturbances, then the devotee easily tolerates that. That okay, in my journey to the highest perfection, if there is some impediment here, some difficulty here, that is just nothing. Like how for a person who's actually aiming for $1,000,000, if he has to spend like $5 here, $2 here, then he doesn't mind it because his goal is millions and billions of dollars. So here a little bit torture, here a little bit difficulty. It's okay because my goal is so. So that's the point there. Right? Okay. Yeah, okay, text 27, and it's described here that how, and so, O Brahmana Vyastev, in due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna. So, Krishna Matehe. So, one who's fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna and had no material attachments. Amala Atmana, right? Amala Atmana. Mala means impurity. So, Amala, without impurity. So, one who is actually free from all material impurities or material dirt. Amala Atmanaha. So it says, Narad Muni Krishna Mati was fully absorbed in Krishna, and by that absorption on Krishna, then he was completely free from all material dirt. And then in that state, he actually met with death, and then met with death as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. So when we see lightning, when there's a thunder and lightning in the sky, as soon as the lightning, immediately the sky becomes there's light spread all over the sky. As soon as there's lightning, right, you see the illumination. So they occur almost simultaneously. Like Chakravarti Pad is saying that, where intelligence, we cannot even make a difference between the lightning and the illumination. And that is compared to how Narad Muni gave up his a material body and he actually took the spiritual body. Right? So one point is that Narad Muni, though he had the material body at this stage, because he had attained prema even when he was in the association of the Bhakti Vedantas, and now he's actually perfected his life. How we talked about uh, coming to the youthful stage, infant stage of prema to youthful stage of prema. So now he's come to that youthful stage of prema. So certainly there's no material attachments or his material body as such was actually, it was his consciousness was completely purified. There was no question of any karma, even prarabdha karma or aprarabdha. Everything is actually washed away. It's completely pure, right? So for such a person, then giving up the material body and immediately accepting a spiritual body, it is almost simultaneously. One cannot even make out a difference, right? So Prabhupada says in the purport, that is to say a devotee simultaneously changes his material body and develops a spiritual body by the will of the Supreme. Okay? And Prabhupada also makes the point, like often in lectures we hear Prabhupada making the point that as we are engaging in devotional service, then we are actually spiritualizing our body, right? Our body itself is getting spiritual. So at the time of death, when you have to give up the body, and if we have perfected our life by Krishna's will, Krishna's desire, if we are perfected, then easily we give up this and we actually get a spiritual body. Okay. Okay. Text 28. Further, he says, here, having been awarded a transcendental body. So Narad Muni already now, anyway, I'm referring to Narad Muni, but in previous lifetime we are reading, and that in that time we don't know what was his name. That's not being mentioned, but he actually attained a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of God. So Lord Himself, actually, in verse 23 of this chapter, he says that such a person, he actually becomes Maj Janatam, my own person or my own family, So, so in that verse 23, Krishna has made the point to Narada that by your service to those devotees, even for few days, you serve those devotees. The devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me, and then he actually becomes much janata. Like he actually becomes one of my own associates. And here we see how Narad Muni got a spiritual body, which is actually befitting an associate of the personality of body, right? Personality of Godhead. I quit the body made of five material elements and thus acquired all acquired fruitive results of work, all karma stops. So there is no question of karma. Like Prabhupada quotes that verse in the purport from Brahma Samhita. Karmani nirdhati kintu cha bhakti bhaja. Right? So karma actually is applicable for everyone, starting from Indra to Indra Gopa, which is actually a very insignificant germ. So starting from Indra, the king of heaven, to Indra Gopa, an insignificant germ, everyone is subjected to the laws of karma except the devotees. The devotees of the Lord are exempt from such reactions. Only the devotee is exempt from such reactions. So for a devotee, or who has attained the stage of prema, certainly there is no reactions, right? He's exempt from all those material modes. He's free from the influence of all the material modes and hence free from the reactions of all fruitive activity. Okay, and in the purport, Prabhupada also gives example of Dhruv Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and many other devotees in Bhagavatam we see where they are actually able to see, like Prithu Maharaj, they were able to see the Lord even in that very same body, right? So basically, Prabhupada is making a point. This means that the quality of a devotee's body changes from material to spiritual, right? So, we have made this point again, like in the starting of chapter, this point is there that, we through our material body, we cannot see the Lord. Like 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I will give you, right, the divine eyes, right, with which you can see me. So when someone is qualified that the Lord is revealing himself to that person, then with that he actually also gives the transcendental senses or the transcendental body by which he can actually see the Lord. Okay, text 29. And then here he's continuing his story. He's saying in 29, he's saying that how it says Kalpante, okay, at the end of Brahma's day. So this is, he already made the point that in previous day of Brahma, this entire story took place. So at the end of Brahma's day, what happened? Then Narad Muni already had a spiritual body, but he actually, in that body, he entered like how Brahma began to enter. So at the end of the day of Brahma, there is actually devastation. Right? So at the end of every day of Brahma, there is devastation. So at the end of every kalpa, there is a devastation. Then Brahma he actually enters into Garbhodakshay Vishnu at that particular point. And then at that point, when Brahma entered along with all the creative elements into the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, even Narad Muni actually entered, right, through his being. Okay. So translating, at the end of millennium, when the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, lay down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all creative elements, and I also entered. So Narad Muni also entered into Brahma. Okay, and then purport Prabhupada is actually saying that how Bhagavad Gita says, Janma karma che me divyam, the one who knows the birth and activities of the Lord, then he doesn't have to take birth again in this material world. Now, the same point is even applicable to the devotees of the Lord. So, here, when you are reading about Narad Muni's, going into the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu and again appearing the next day of Brahma, so just by Janma karma cha me divyam, where Krishna is saying, my birth and experience, that is actually even devotees of the Lord. Even understanding their birth, their activities is actually transcendental, right? And one can get the same benefit of going back home, back to Godhead, just by understanding the appearance and disappearance of the devotees of the Lord. Prabhupada says, Narad Muni's appearance and appearance are practically on the same level as that of the Lord himself. Okay. In text 30. Sahasra Yuga Paryante. So here it's saying after 4.3 billion years, right? So after the entire day of Brahma, when Brahma, actually night of Brahma, right? So the day of Brahma, the 12 hours is 4.3 billion years, and night of Brahma is again 4.3 billion years, right? 12 hours 12 day and 12 hours night. So after 12 hours of the night of Brahma, 4.3 billion years, then Brahma awoke and to create again by the will of the Lord. And when he creates, we'll read this in the third canto, 12th chapter, then all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and they are all actually created. They actually again appear from the body of the Lord. And I also appeared with them. Right? So at the time, even Narad Muni appears. So one may question that how is it that Narad Muni is actually appearing like the other sages, which are, it appears that Narad Muni is again taking birth. But the point is again the same which was made in the previous purport, that how the Lord, it appears that the Lord is taking birth from the womb of Devaki and Vasudeva, but the Lord is always transcendent. Similarly, a devotee who is actually at that transcendental stage, obtain the spiritual body, then his appearance and disappearance is just like the appearance of the Lord, how the Lord just appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Similarly, the Narad Muni appeared from the contemplation of Brahma, right? So Narad Muni himself. And Prabhupada says Narad Muni appears in the same transcendental body. And so text 31 further says, since then, by the grace of Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in transcendental world and in the three divisions of material world. This is because I'm fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. Right? So Narad Muni, he is Prabhupada says in purport, he's a liberated spaceman, right? He's a transcendental spaceman. So he can travel everywhere. What to talk of just the Urdhva, Madhya, and Adha, right? So these three are the top higher planetary system, middle planetary system, lower planetary system. You can travel all here, everywhere, but not only in this material world, but you can travel beyond the material world. You can go to Vaikunta, you can go to the spiritual world. Narad Muni has that power to actually travel everywhere. Right? So that's why Prabhupada says he's a liberated spaceman. He can travel everywhere. And we see like throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, how there is a particular episode and Narad Muni is there, right? How Narad Muni appears everywhere, right? Wherever, there's actually Narad Muni personality. Every canto of Bhagavatam, we read again and again stories of Narad Muni. So he's appearing everywhere. Wherever the devotee needs some kind of certain guidance, the Narad Muni is there to actually show him the guidance, to actually connect them to Krishna. So Prabhupada concludes Narad Muni is the prime authority for transcendental devotional service of the Lord. Right? So he is actually empowered by that bhakti shakti, right? Transcendental devotion. So hence he is the prime authority. Right? Now, in the also another point that's important, that the other sages, when you say Marichi and other sages, they appear from the body of Brahma. It is they actually appeared with material bodies because they were under the influence of their own karma. So even though they are so exalted stages, there's some karma, and with that they enter into the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and then next day when Brahma wakes up, they come back and there's still some karma left, so they still have the particular body. And then the personality like the four Kumaras, they actually had, were on the involved in Gyan. Chakravarti Pad is actually making the point that, Marichi and other sages, they were involved in Karma Yoga. Kumaras, they were involved in Jnana Yoga. But the appearance of Lord is not like these personality in the sense that the Narad Muni himself is actually completely transcendental. His appearance is different from all these different personalities that are mentioned. Okay, so Chakravarti Pad is saying that Narad Muni is above the paths of material engagement and renunciation. Okay, text 32 further is actually saying, and thus, what does Narad Muni do? Thus I travel, constantly singing the transcendental message of the glory of the Lord, vibrating instrument called a veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. So that veena, Narad Muni bajai veena, Radhika Ramana namane, that famous bhajan, right? Narad Muni bajai veena. He's actually always singing on his veena, and then Radhika Ramana Namani. He's always singing the glories of Radhika Raman, right? So he's constantly singing the transcendental message of the Lord and vibrating this veena, which is charged with transcendental sound, and it's given to him by Krishna himself. So Prabhupada actually saying that this veena is actually a transcendental instrument. It cannot produce any material sound. The sound produced from the veena is actually completely spiritual, completely transcendental to mundane sound vibration. And in the Sanskrit, there's the word swara, right? Swara. And that actually refers to the 7 notes of the scale. So any instrument you say, there's always sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, right? So those 7 notes of the scale, they are actually, Prabhupada says, they are also transcendental, and they are actually meant for glorifying the Supreme Personality of God. But when we actually misuse these sare gama pada and use it for glorifying mundane personalities or self-glorification, then we are misusing the true purpose of these 7. Right? Then that pure sound, the pure transcendental syllables, they actually get contaminated. I mean, what we are hearing is actually the reflection of these pure sounds. But these 7 notes are actually transcendental and specifically meant for glorifying the Supreme Personality of God. So Prabhupada says that a self-realized soul should follow in the footsteps of Narad Muni and should also properly use all these sound mantras, Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Da, Ni, Sa, only to glorify the Supreme Personality of God. Okay. Next verse. So 33, here it says, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart as if called for as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. So as soon as Narad Muni sings the glories of the Lord actually appears in the core of the heart. And this is the situation of pure devotees of the Lord. Right? As soon as they're thinking of glorifying the Supreme Personality of God, the Lord actually appears in the core of the heart. As soon as they begin to chant. Right? So how there's a famous verse, it says, Krishna says, Naham tishtami vaikunte. I do not reside in Vaikuntha, nor in the hearts of the yogis. Where am I? Where my pure devotees are actually glorifying me. Right? So that is the point. So Krishna actually immediately appears in Narad Muni's heart as soon as he begins to chant the the glories of the Supreme Personality of God. So the word in the Sanskrit is also, and the verse says Tirtha Pada. Tirtha Pada actually refers to a Lord whose lotus feet are the source of all virtues of holiness. Right? So we'll read further also in the next chapter, in chapter 13, when we read about Vidura, how Vidura comes back from all his travels, and when he meets Yudhishthir, Yudhishthir Maharaj actually says that you yourself are actually a holy place, because wherever pure devotees are traveling, because they carry Krishna in the heart, that place actually becomes a place of pilgrimage. Tirtha Pada, right? It becomes a place of pilgrimage. Why? Because Krishna is personally in the core of his heart. Okay, and Prabhupada says an excellent sentence in the purpose. He says, as soon as a pure devotee engages in Shravanam Kirtanam, at once he becomes, the Lord becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. So how Prabhupada is actually using the word spiritual television. So when the pure devotees chant the glory of the Lord actually he appears in the core of the heart. How is he appearing? The heart is actually, how we say, Cheto Darpana Marjana. Darpana is like a mirror, right? And when the pure devotees chant, right now our process is Cheto Darpana Marjana. The mirror is contaminated with so much dust, and hence we have to chant Hare Krishna and purify the dust. But when a devotee is at that stage, and that pure stage here, like Narad Muni, as soon as he chants, because of no contamination on that surface of the mirror, the Lord reflects his self in on that heart of the devotee, right? By spiritual television, Prabhupada says spiritual television, right? So the Lord is reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart. And hence the devotees can actually see. And when the Lord appears, it's not just the Lord himself. When you say Krishna, that means Krishna, his abode, his associates, his pastimes, everything is actually appearing. And hence we have stories of how our Goswamis, like Rupa Goswami, there's a famous story that how in his closed eyes he was actually seeing the pastime of the Lord. They actually see it like a spiritual television. And hence these are the personalities who are empowered to write the different glories and pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality, because Krishna is revealing them to them like spiritual television. Okay? And then Prabhupada makes another very nice point in purpose. He says, you know how if someone is speaking about us, like you're in a group of people, and then you hear someone saying, "Oh, you know so and so person," and if they're talking about you, immediately you're like, "Oh, let's see what are they talking about me," right? And if they're glorifying you, "Oh, this person actually is so humble, he's doing so much seva," or any kind of glorification, and you hear that and you feel like, "Oh, so nice," you feel happy, right? So this is Prabhupada says this is a natural psychology of every individual being, right? That the person likes to hear and enjoy his personal glories enumerated by others, right? And the same instinct which is there in everyone is actually coming from the Lord himself, right? So Lord also has that psychology that we actually talk about him when we glorify him and we say, "Oh, Lord is so merciful, he's so beautiful, how he plays his flute standing on the banks of the Yamuna in the threefold bending." When we glorify the Lord in this way, because Lord has the same psychological characteristic, you know, we have the characteristic because it's from the Lord. So he has the same natural characteristics. So when we glorify, the Lord immediately cannot resist, and he comes and then he actually gives his darshan in the core of the heart through reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart. That's so beautiful. Okay, 34. 34 is actually one of the verses. That is the conclusion of this entire thing, and one of the verses that is also in Bhagavad Ratnamala, that is for memorization. From this entire chapter, we want to memorize this 34 and 26. 26 is not there in Ratnamala, but 34 at least you should memorize. So it says, Etad di atura chittana matra sparshe shayamuhu bhava sindho plava drishta hari charyanuvalna. Narad Muni is saying, okay, we have seen the life of Narad Muni, how he's such a glorious, he has attained perfection. He's speaking from his own experience. Purpose and purpose, because such a personality is speaking from his own experience, no other proof is actually required. Right? So he says, Etad dir atura chittana. It is my personal experience that those atura chittana, those whose minds are actually full of cares and anxieties. Why? Because matra sparshe chaya muhu. As soon as we engage our senses with sense objects, with a desire to enjoy, immediately we are filled with anxieties. So atura chittana, immediately there's anxieties, right? As soon as, so the similar verse in Bhagavad Gita also, yehi samsparsha jab hoga. Yehi samsparsha, right? The same sparsha is here. Jab hoga dukkha yonayam. As soon as the senses are coming in contact with the sense object for sense gratification, right? Dukkha yana, that only causes of misery. Only causes of misery. And here the same point. So first two lines are the same. But the third and fourth line says, Bhava Sindhu Plavodrisha Hari Charyanuvarna. So this entire Bhava Sindhu, the ocean of nescience, right? How can we cross over this entire ocean of nescience? Plavaha, by a boat. And what is that boat? Hari Charyanu Varnana, right? And that is actually Anuvarnanam, means constantly, uninterruptedly reciting what? Hari Charya, the activities of the Supreme Personality of God. So this is Narad Muni's experience. So when such personalities, such Mahajans give their own experience and who have attained perfection, starting from the son of a maidservant, going all the way to perfection, then there is no other proof required. We just follow in the footsteps of such personalities and we can attain perfection. So what is it? Bhava Sindhu Plavo Drishta. This is the boat that can actually take us across Bhava Sindhu, across the ocean. What is that? Constantly chanting and glorifying the Supreme Personality of God. That's it. This is the essence of the entire Bhagavatam. Like again and again, we need to glorify, you have to hear Hari Katha, you have to speak about Hari Katha. That is the way that's actually the perfect boat that will take us across this material ocean. So translation, personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of omniscience on a more suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of God. So Prabhupada actually makes a point that, how symptom of each one of us is we cannot remain silent even for some time. We are always thinking about something, we are talking about something, we are glorifying something, we are hearing something. Always we are engaged in this. But the only thing that is, as long as we hear material subject matters, we are in Maya. Prabhupada says Maya is that which is not. What is not, that's Maya. So basically it's illusion. So if we just change the subject matter, that instead of focusing, glorifying uh, all the mundane topics, or Prabhupada actually makes a point in the purport where he says, glorifying, talking about a dying person. Everyone in this world is dying, right? So if you, instead of glorifying a dying person, hearing about a dying person, why not just change the subject matter where you actually hear about Krishna, and that will actually give us the highest perfection, right? So Prabhupada says, like, instead of relishing cinema artists, right, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which are actually unlimited and full of bliss. Right? So we can have the same experience if we follow in the footsteps of Narad Muni and attain the highest perfection. We can attain that same state that Narad Muni actually attained by following in the footsteps of Narad Muni. Okay, so this is actually a summary of the entire chapter one way is actually coming to this point of engaging in Hari Kirtan. Okay, there is no other proof necessary. Okay. Next verse is saying, in 35, it says, it's true that by practicing restraint of the senses by yoga system, one can get relief from disturbances of desire and lust. So if we engage in different kinds of yoga systems, then yes, by the mystic yoga system or Astanga yoga system, one can actually control his senses. Right? That is that, right? One can get relief from disturbance of desire and lust, but this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul. So coming from the negative, where we are completely contaminated, to the state where our senses are controlled, coming to the zero line, is not enough. One has to go beyond and experience the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because only that will give complete satisfaction to the self. Right? And this satisfaction is derived from devotional service. So Mukunda Sevaya, Mukunda Sevaya. So when you actually engage in that seva to Mukunda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we can get that satisfaction. So here is actually concluding, Narayana is concluding from his own lifetime that, constant glorification of the activities of the Lord and engaging in that direct service to Mukunda, that is the highest conclusion. Okay. Okay, and he says the proper sense program. By his experience, he says that devotional service to the Lord is more effective and practical than the system of artificially controlling the sense. Right? And then Prabhupada in the purport gives the example how Vishwamitra, he was trying to control his senses, but just by hearing the ankle bell of Menaka, he got disturbed. Right? But on the other hand, we see Haridas Thakur, who was actually Maya personified, came to test Haridas Thakur, but still Haridas Thakur was able to overcome all those traps of mind. So the devotional service is what is the recommendation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. 36 is further he's saying, O Vyasdev, you are freed from all sins. Thus I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization as you have asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. So just by hearing by Narad Muni describing his birth and activity, that hearing of the glories of the Lord itself will give satisfaction. So in the previous chapter, Narad Muni told his life and how he actually received the mercy of those devotees and by the devotional service to them, and that is actually the perfection. In this chapter, he's saying just by hearing about the devotees of the Lord, that itself will give you complete satisfaction. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, you talk of devotional service and talk about the activities of the devotees of the Lord. That itself will actually give you the complete satisfaction. So the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is basically glorifying the Lord, but more than the Lord, the devotees of the Lord are glorified. Right, in 7th canto of Bhagavatam. Right, the 9 chapters are just on that entire Prahlad Narasimha Leela. But out of the 9 chapters, more than 5 chapters is just on Prahlad Maharaj, glories of Prahlad Maharaj, the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. Most of that entire section is actually focused on the life and glories of Prahlad Maharaj. So more important than glorifying the devotee is glorifying the Lord, is that glorification of the devotees of the Lord. that is even more powerful, right? So hence, Narad Muni is telling Vyasadeva that you actually, just by hearing about my life, and that itself is giving you satisfaction. So he's pointing out that compile this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is glorifying the pure devotees of the Lord. Okay, next verse. So that's it. So that is basically Narad Muni has spoken to Vyasadeva. And then after that entire conversation, now Suta Goswami is actually speaking. And Suta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Narad Muni took leave of him, and vibrating his Veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. Right? Yadrichikaha. Wherever willing, he's actually going. And where is he going? Just to actually give devotional service to the conditioned souls all over this material world. And Prabhupada points out in the purport that how bhakti itself is actually causeless. Not only bhakti is causeless, he says even the association of devotees is actually free. Free in the sense that it is actually independent. It is causeless. When it happens, it's all causeless. Okay. And then last verse, 38 is saying, all glory. So, Aho Devarsi Dhanyoyam, all glories, Dhanya, all glories to Sri Narad Muni, because he glorified. Yet Kirtim, right? Kirtim, he's always doing the Kirti of who? Sharanga Dhanvanaha. Okay, so the bow of Krishna, right? Krishna has a bow. That bow, the name of the bow is Sharanga, right? Sharanga. And Sharanga Dhanvanaha, one who actually holds that bow of Sharanga, is known as Krishna. So yet Kirtim Krishna, right? One who's holding the Sharanga bow. Then Gayan, Madhyan, Idam, Tantriya. Right? So Gayam singing, Madhyan taking pleasure, Tantriya by means of the instrument, playing the instrument. And then Ramayati enlivens Aturam, distress Jagat world, right? So all glories and success to Srila Narad Muni, because he glorifies the activities of personality of God, yet Kirtim. And so doing, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens Aturam Jagat. All those who are distressed in this material world, he actually enlivens all those. So throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll see how Narad Muni is enlivening so many different personalities. Right? Every canto we see Narad Muni coming and enlivening the different personalities. So all glories and success to this Narad Muni. He is always engaging in glorifying the Lord and shower his mercy to conditions. Okay, so that ends the chapter. So that is the end of chapter 6. So we'll stop here. Thank you all so much for your association. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya, Kripa Sindhubhyavacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namo. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.